Biography of Barenziah, Volume 1 by Stern Gambogi, Imperial Scribe. Late in the Second Era, a girl child, Barenziah, was born to the rulers of the Kingdom of Mournhold in what is now the Imperial Province of Morrowind. She was reared in all the luxury and security befitting a royal dark elven child until she reached 5 years of age. At that time, His Excellency, Tiber Septim I, the first Emperor of Tamriel, demanded that the decadent rulers of Morrowind yield to him and institute imperial reforms. Trusting to their vaunted magic, the Dark Elves impudently refused, until Tiber Septim's army was on the borders. An armistice was hastily signed by the now eager Dunmer, but not before there were several battles, one of which laid waste to Mournhold, now called Almalexia. Little Princess Barenziah and her nurse were found amongst the wreckage. The Imperial General, Symmachus, himself a Dark Elf, suggested to Tiber Septim that the child might someday be valuable, and she was therefore placed with a loyal supporter who had recently retired from the Imperial Army. Sven Advensen had been granted the title of Count upon his retirement. His fiefdom, Darkmoor, was a small town in central Skyrim. Count Sven and his wife reared the princess as their own daughter, seeing to it that she was educated appropriately and, more importantly, that the imperial virtues of obedience, discretion, loyalty and piety were instilled in the child. In short, she was made fit to take her place as a member of the new ruling class of Morrowind. The girl Barenziah grew in beauty, grace and intelligence. She was sweet-tempered, a joy to her adoptive parents and their 5 young sons, who loved her as their elder sister. Other than her appearance, she differed from young girls of her class only in that she had a strong empathy for the woods and fields, and was wont to escape her household duties to wander there at times. Barenziah was happy and content until her 16th year, when a wicked orphan stable boy, whom she had befriended out of pity, told her he had overheard a conspiracy between her guardian, Count Sven, and a Redguard visitor to sell her as a concubine in Rihad. As no Nord or Breton would marry her on account of her black skin, and no Dark Elf would have her because of her foreign upbringing. "Whatever shall I do?" the poor girl said, weeping and trembling, for she had been brought up in innocence and trust, and it never occurred to her that her friend the stable boy would lie to her. The wicked boy, who was called Straw, said that she must run away if she valued her virtue, but that he would come with her as a protector. Sorrowfully, Barenziah agreed to this plan, and that very night she disguised herself as a boy, and the pair escaped to a nearby city of Whiterun. After a few years there, they managed to get jobs as guards for a disreputable merchant caravan. The caravan was heading east by side roads in a mendacious attempt to elude the lawful tolls charged on the imperial highways. Thus the pair eluded pursuit until they reached their city of Riften, where they ceased their travels for a time. They felt safe in Riften, close as it was to the Morrowind border, so that Dark Elves were enough of a common sight. Biography of Barenziah, Volume 2 by Stern Gambogi, Imperial Scribe. The first volume of this series told the story of Barenziah's origin, heiress to the throne of Mournhold until her father rebelled against His Excellency Tiber Septim I and brought ruin to the province of Morrowind. Thanks largely to the benevolence of the Emperor, the child Barenziah was not destroyed with her parents, but reared by Count Sven of Darkmoor, a loyal imperial trustee. She grew up into a beautiful and pious child, trustful of her guardian's care. This trust, however, was exploited by a wicked orphan stable boy at Count Sven's estate, who with lies and fabrications tricked her into fleeing Darkmoor with him when she turned 16. After many adventures on the road, they settled in Riften, a Skyrim city near the Morrowind borders. The stable boy, Straw, was not altogether evil. He loved Barenziah in his own selfish fashion, and deception was the only way he could think of that would cement possession of her. She, of course, felt only friendship toward him, but he was hopeful that she would gradually change her mind. He wanted to buy a small farm and settle down into a comfortable marriage, but at the time his earnings were barely enough to feed and shelter them. After only a short time in Riften, straw fell in with a bold, villainous Khajiit thief named Theris, who proposed that they rob the imperial commandant's house in the central part of the city. Theris said that he had a client, a traitor to the empire, who would pay well for any information they could gather there. Barenziah happened to overhear this plan and was appalled. She stole away from their rooms and walked the streets of Riften in desperation, torn between her loyalty to the empire and her love for her friends. In the end, loyalty to the empire prevailed over personal friendship, and she approached the commandant's house, revealed her true identity, and warned him of her friend's plan. The commandant listened to her tale, praised her courage, and assured her that no harm would come to her. He was none other than General Symmachus, who had been scouring the countryside in search of her since her disappearance, and had just arrived in Riften, hot in pursuit. He took her into his custody and informed her that, far from being sent away to be sold, she was to be reinstated as the Queen of Mournhold as soon as she turned 18. Until that time, she was to live with the Septim family in the newly built imperial city, where she would learn something of government and be presented at imperial court. At the imperial city, Barenziah befriended the Emperor Tiber Septim during the middle years of his reign. Tiber's children, particularly his eldest son and heir, Pelagius, came to love her as a sister. The ballads of the day praised her beauty, chastity, wit, and learning. On her 18th birthday, the entire imperial city turned out to watch her farewell procession preliminary to her return to her native land. Sorrowful as they were at her departure, all knew that she was ready for her glorious destiny as sovereign of the kingdom of Mournhold. Biography of Barenziah, Volume 3 by Stern Gambogi, Imperial Scribe. In the second volume of this series, it was told how Barenziah was kindly welcomed to the newly constructed imperial city by the Emperor Tiber Septim and his family, who treated her like a long-lost daughter during her almost 1-year stay. After several happy months there learning her duties as vassal queen under the empire, the imperial general Symmachus escorted her to Mournhold, where she took up her duties as queen of her people under his wise guidance. Gradually they came to love one another and were married and crowned in a splendid ceremony at which the emperor himself officiated. After several hundred years of marriage, a son, Helseth, was born of the royal couple, amid celebration and joyous prayer. Although it was not publicly known at the time, it was shortly before this blessed event that the Staff of Chaos had been stolen from its hiding place deep in Mournhold mines by a clever, enigmatic bard known only as the Nightingale. 8 years after Helseth's birth, Barenziah bore a daughter, Morgia, named after Symmachus' mother, and the royal couple's joy seemed complete. Alas, shortly after that, relations with the empire mysteriously deteriorated, leading to much civil unrest in Mournhold. After fruitless investigations and attempts at reconciliation, in despair, Barenziah took her young children and travelled to the imperial city herself to seek the ear of then Emperor Uriel Septim VII. Symmachus remained in Mournhold to deal with the grumbling peasants and annoyed nobility, and do what he could to stave off an impending insurrection. During her audience with the emperor, Barenziah, through her magical arts, came to realize to her horror and dismay that the so-called emperor was an impostor, none other than the bard Nightingale, who had stolen the Staff of Chaos. Exercising great self-control, she concealed this realization from him. That evening, news came that Symmachus had fallen in battle with the revolting peasants of Mournhold, and that the kingdom had been taken over by the rebels. Barenziah, at this point, did not know where to seek help or from whom. The gods that fateful night were evidently looking out for her, as if in redress of her loss. King Eadwir of High Rock, an old friend of Uriel Septim and Symmachus, came by on a social call. He comforted her, pledged his friendship, and furthermore confirmed her suspicions that the emperor was indeed a fraud, and none other than Yagar Tharn, the imperial battle mage, and one of the Nightingale's many alter egos. Tharn had supposedly retired into seclusion from public work and installed his assistant, Rhea Silmarne, in his stead. The hapless assistant was later put to death under mysterious circumstances. Supposedly, a plot implicating her had been uncovered, and she had been summarily executed. However, her ghost had appeared to Eadweir in a dream and revealed to him that the true emperor had been kidnapped by Tharn and imprisoned in an alternate dimension. Tharn had then used the Staff of Chaos to kill her when she attempted to warn the Elder Council of his nefarious plot. Together, Eadweir and Barenziah plotted to gain the false emperor's confidence. Meanwhile, another friend of Rhea's, known only as the Champion, who apparently possessed great, albeit then untapped potential, was incarcerated at the Imperial dungeons. However, she had access to his dreams, and she told him to bide his time until she could devise a plan that would effect his escape. Then he could begin on his mission to unmask the impostor. Barenziah continued to charm and eventually befriended the Erzatz Emperor. By contriving to read his secret diary, she learned that he had broken the Staff of Chaos into 8 pieces and hidden them in far-flung locations, scattered across Tamriel. She managed to obtain a copy of the key to Rhea's friend's cell and bribed a guard to leave it there as if by accident. Their champion, whose name was unknown even to Barenziah and Eadweir, made his escape through a shift gate. Rhea had opened in an obscure corner of the Imperial dungeons using her already failing powers. The champion was free at last and almost immediately went to work. It took Barenziah several more months to learn the hiding places of all 8 staff pieces through snatches of overheard conversation and rare glances at Tharn's diary. Once she had the vital information, however, which she communicated to Rhea forthwith, who in turn passed it on to the champion, she and Eadweir lost no time. They fled to Wayrest, his ancestral kingdom, in the province of High Rock, where they managed to fend off the sporadic efforts of Tharn's henchmen to haul them back to the Imperial city, or at the very least obtain revenge. Tharn, whatever else might be said of him, was no one's fool, save perhaps Barenziah's, and he concentrated most of his efforts towards tracking down and destroying the champion. As all now know, the courageous, indefatigable, and forever nameless champion was successful in reuniting the 8 sundered pieces of the Staff of Chaos. With it, he destroyed Tharn and rescued the true Emperor, Uriel Septim VII. Following what has come to be known as the Restoration, a grand state memorial service was held for Symmachus at the Imperial city, befitting the man who had served the Septim dynasty for so long and so well. Barenziah and good King Eadweir had come to care deeply for one another during their trials and adventures, and were married in the same year shortly after their flight from the Imperial city. Her 2 children from her previous marriage with Symmachus remained with her, and a regent was appointed to rule Mournhold in her absence. Up to the present time, Queen Barenziah has been in the Wayrest with Prince Helseth and Princess Morgia. She plans to return to Mournhold after Eadweir's death, since he was already elderly. When they wed, she knows that event, alas, could not be far off, as the elves reckon time. Until then, she shares in the government of the Kingdom of Wayrest with her husband, and seems glad and content with her finally quiet and happily unremarkable life. Now, I don't recognise this story, to be honest, but it does sound like they're talking about a previous game, doesn't it? So I'm guessing it must be the first one, because it's the only one I've not played. I played Daggerfell, although it was such a long time ago, I don't really remember it. But Uriel Septim VII, wasn't he the Emperor in Oblivion as well? I think he was. Was he alive for like 3 of them? I don't know, actually. I'm a bit bit unsure of this. My lore is not so good, but I have a feeling we just read part of the story of the very first Elder Scrolls game.